Hey, so this is a recording from a class I taught on April 23rd, but I didn't have my mic with me when I went to this class, so please excuse the audio. It's a little quiet. It was recorded on a phone that was a little bit away from me. All right, hope you enjoy.
And you're on.
Okay. Well, I want to start by saying thank you for having me. To your home group, is anybody that was here the last time I taught here, is anybody familiar with my teaching or know me? I know some familiar faces. Yeah? Okay. Well, I've been here before. It's a little different than it was last time I was here. I like this better. It's cozy. Yeah, it's nice in a circle like this. I teach, I run groups I used to work at a drug clinic, and I would run groups probably about this size, so the circle is familiar to me, and it's comfortable. I like it. What I'm going to be talking about today, I posted on the Facebook group. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, balance. And when I speak about this, I'm speaking from whatever I'm teaching, I'm trying to teach from my current experience. So even Christina had asked me, can you post something on the Facebook group so people will know what the topic is about? And my response was a little bit like, yes, I'll post something because I want to have a general topic, but even that was like, I try not to get too far out into the future of what I'm going to teach, and I try to teach from what's currently coming up. But luckily, I'm still exploring in my own personal practice this place of balance for me. And what that means for me in my practice, and I think it was Joseph Goldstein or maybe Jack Kornfield who said, we teach what we need. And that's a place that I'm teaching from. You know, balance right now is something that I need in my life, so I'm teaching from that place. And what I'm exploring is the balance of practice and rest. Because my tendency has been, at least over the years, and maybe I'll give you a little background about my journey, but I'll start by saying my tendency has been to try to effort my way through it and to do it better, to do it more efficiently. Like everything that I know from the American culture, and especially the culture on Long Island, it's like just driving force to be doing more, to be fitting more into our day. So my meditation practice has at times fallen into that same model of this is something that I'd like to be better at. And if there is the idea that I like to be better at something, then with that, or for me, what has come with that is striving. So in the tradition that I have learned, mindfulness-based stress reduction, there's this talk about non-striving. And there's a large emphasis on not striving in your practice. But then there's this large question came up, and it's still coming up. Is the roof falling? Just like that.
We used to it. Sorry. We get to work with that every day.
Work with that.
Okay. So, the balance of striving, right? Here's this practice, meditation, mindfulness, and I don't want to have my back to anything. I'm going to back up a little. Here's this practice of of meditation, and it's something that in any of the literature that I've read or the teachers that I've listened to, there's this element of non-striving. But the question comes up, how do I become better at something if I'm not striving? And there's also this idea about practicing, right? Meditation is something we practice. So maybe inherent in that is like, if I'm supposed to be practicing something, then I'm practicing for some purpose. I'm trying to get better at it by practicing it. So that's that balance that I'm talking about is balancing that striving, that effort, that practice, that discipline with non-striving and with really, at this point in my practice, rest, what that means for me. So I'll talk a little bit about my journey. One of the things that I've done on my journey to becoming a mindfulness teacher was a 10-day silent retreat, and there was a large emphasis on discipline in that retreat. What I mean is they would guide us, they would put us in a room and they would call it, what was the term? Strong determination, right? That's what they would call the practice. And we were to sit in a meditation practice for an hour at a time or longer without moving, right? Without trying as best you can without moving. And in that practice of me trying not to move in my body, I was also trying not to move in my mind. And I think that creeps into my practice often, is this idea that I'm supposed to be still. And it's something that I find myself falling into striving. So what I want to go into today with, or my intention for this group here today, is to go into it with an attitude of balancing, right? Because I think to some degree we come to something like this, or at least I do when I go to another person teaching, trying to learn something, trying to understand something maybe I didn't understand, or learn something about the practice. And my intention is to set the table for this to be more of like, let's see what comes up, and not trying so hard with so much effort to cling to the things I'm saying, or clinging to even the things that are coming up and with yourself, like these, what can I learn from this, but maybe balancing that more with rest. So seeing what even maybe that feels like in you, to just be sitting in this seat with the intention of this being a time of rest. It's a time of learning. There are things that we can learn. Maybe some things I say will resonate with you. Maybe things other people say will resonate with you. Maybe something that comes up within you while practicing will resonate with you. So it is a time of learning, and it can be a time of practice, but also balancing that with rest, so allowing it to be a nourishing time. This is something that Jon Kabat-Zinn, when he does his guided meditations that I've listened to the audio, a lot of times he says, allow this to be a nourishing time for you. And that's making sense to me now in a deeper way. And what I get out of that is setting this intention, setting the table. So maybe power in not having a set expectation, right? I have notes for where my plan for this to go is, but those are expectations, right? And it's also balancing that, like seeing what comes up. So there's the balance of structure, like this is my plan for where it will go, and these are the expectations, but then also allowing there to be space for other things to come up. And for what comes up in you to be the teacher. There's a great meditation teacher, Ramana Maharshi. He is considered one of, from the books I've read, considered one of the greater meditation teachers. And he taught for years, I think 15 years, in silence, right? He taught his students in silence. What does that mean? What does it mean to teach in silence? And what I get from that is that he was trying to communicate in some way that the teaching comes from you. Like, there are some things that I'll say that maybe will resonate, but what you're learning is coming from you in your practice. So I guess going into today with that as well, the understanding that, yeah, there's some terms and some things that I will talk about that maybe there will be some insight that comes from that, but the learning comes from yourself. When I have been on my silent retreats, I'll practice, all day, and there isn't anybody saying anything, but there's a lot of learning going on because the learning is coming from your own experience. So there's also, what I'm calling this whole thing is like practice and rest, right? But really balance. I want to talk a little bit about my journey as far as the word enlightenment, right? That was something that was important to me. And I spent years reading about this term and this idea of enlightenment, and it was something that I was striving towards trying to achieve. And it was something I read by Saki Santorelli, he's highly affiliated with UMass and the mindfulness-based stress reduction curriculum. He wrote the prologue for the curriculum. And I forget exactly what it was that he said, but basically something along the lines of, when in meditation, in mindfulness practice, you will be learning forever. Like, you never get there. You never get to some point where you know it all. I think it's the same. It's synonymous with it's a microcosm of life, right? We never get to the point where we know it all. And in that, reading that, it started to, I didn't realize at the time, but it started to take away some of the power of this strong desire I had to work towards enlightenment, like to work towards some place where I've done it, like the end of the marathon, the end of the spiritual marathon. So my intention was always to grow and, get to this place. And in letting go of that is really where a lot of deeper learning started to happen for me. Letting go of the idea that I'm going to get somewhere. And that was always the instruction that I had learned from teachers, and the instruction I was trying to give myself in my practice. I'll often say things to myself or to people that I'm in a group like this with. I'll say things like, we're focusing on the breath, right? We're not focusing on the breath so that we'll get somewhere. So that in focusing on the breath, the body will come to a certain state. I mean, some of these things might be happening, scientifically speaking, but the goal is, if the goal going into the practice is, I want to feel relaxed, that sometimes can become an obstacle. So a letting go of ideas of where we want to get, philosophically speaking, ideas we might have about our own journey, our own path, where we want to be, where we want to get, and then also in the practice itself. So let's say we're sitting in a practice where we are breathing or paying attention to the body. It's like doing that just to do that. I often use an example of like a leaf falling, right? If a leaf falls from a tree, we're not expecting anything from that leaf. It's just falling, and that's just something that's happening in the experience of this life. And the breathing, right? If we bring attention to breathing, that is just, it's another thing that's happening. It's another occurrence. So when we start to say, I want to get myself in this place of breathing so that I can get somewhere, we're complicating it. We're complicating the natural progression of what is happening, which is just breath. The breath is happening. It's happening here while I'm talking to you. It's always been happening. And as long as you're alive, it will always continue to happen. And I think in the purest form, it's just bringing awareness to these things as they're happening. And sort of, in a sense, letting go of some of the ideas, the intentions of where it might go. Can I ask, did anybody have an intention or an idea of where tonight might go for them? Like maybe, I'll give an example. I had a really stressful week. What is it, Tuesday? Well, I've had a really stressful Monday. And I've had a stressful Monday, and I want today to be that time where I reset. Or another story that you may have had for what you may get out of today.